the military makes great commanders. But once you take that authority away from them, on average, what I witnessed was they were not leaders, right? Because nobody would willingly follow them. Once you took away those sticks that they could employ to inspire followership.
Hello everybody, this is Anthony for a new episode of Your Brother's Podcast. Today my guest is Mr. Kale Houser. Kale is a small business leadership coach and we recently met through the 10X community. I really like his attitude, his personality. I think we have a great connection. I had the privilege to be on his show last week actually, and now I'm giving this chance back to him to learn more about his story, his experience, and how he conquered life himself. Kale, welcome to the show, my friend.
Hi, Anthony. Thank you so much for inviting me, really. And I was just thinking too, back to our episode and how much fun we had and got to really kind of learn about each other and learn about you and what you've got going with Your Brother podcast. And really I'm fascinated by the idea. And I think it's something that's absolutely timely and absolutely needed in the world at large to kind of learn from each other and find those different modes of encouragement from each other. So thank you for inviting me. I'm looking forward to this. I've been looking forward to it all week, actually. I've got a little tinglies going.
So this is like volume 2. Yeah, I had volume 1 last week and now we just give back. So Kale, let's start with going back. Let's maybe 2 parts. First thing, let's go back to teenage years or maybe early 20s. Did you already have an interest for leadership at the time or it came later into your life?
Yeah, not at all. I was your typical, didn't know what he wanted to do, kind of just, living by the moment, teenager, young man. One thing that was a little bit unique about my story is I got married when I was 18 years old. My wife and I met in high school in band class. How incredibly cool is that, right?
Yeah, awesome.
And we got engaged the night I graduated high school and then married a year later, which was technically a month before I turned 19. So I was still a teenager. But yeah, at that point, the whole life kind of shifted and, then you become a family man. We didn't have kids or anything at that time. We didn't have kids until much later, like 10 years later in our life, which was cool. But yeah, it was never on my radar. It was never something I thought about. It was never something I aspired to at all. I came from a very solid middle-class family. My father was a state trooper up in Washington State, and my mom, worked clerical type work and human resources. And it was never, even going to college was kind of just an afterthought. It was, I graduated high school in 1995. So during that time, it was very much, hey, that's what you do. You went to college and, find a job. But even then I'm like, I don't even know what I want to go to college for or anything. I really didn't have anything other than, as with most probably teenage and young men, like I was interested in my wife. That was kind of my world and what I wanted to just do. Yeah. So nope, never had that kind of aspirations or anything at all.
So and I can relate for the love relationship part because for me, like 4 years ago when I met my wife, which was not my wife at the time, I had this desire to just build a life with her, even more than any other goals. So I think for a young man, it's quite maybe frequent. If you seek monogamy and you want a long-term relationship, this can become very time consuming in a good way. So you want to build a foundation to be able to have a great life together. So that's part of, I think, a life mission. And once that is settled, then everything else that you may, I'm curious about this, let's go explore that. And then it can blossom in a better way. Yeah.
Right. And I think it's so interesting that you say that too, because it shifts our focus and not necessarily in a bad way. Cause you want to be focused on, your new life, especially if you're getting married and going that route, but it closes you off to other things and other potentials because you are so focused like, my new spouse is my world. And that's all you're dealing about. And kind of even jobs and careers are a little bit afterthoughts, especially if you don't go into that relationship with that. And I certainly never had those mentors or even exposure to these other worlds. Cause even my wife's father, my father-in-law, worked in the federal government as a border patrol officer. So, we both came from very middle-class families and that mindset. And now, fast forward 25 years later, it's one of those, I don't regret by any stretch, but I'm like, man, I sure missed out on a lot by not purposely exposing myself to other people, other opportunities, and really
Mm,
mentors at that point, because I essentially didn't have any external mentors outside of my
yeah.
own family.
So do you think that the people around you, so if you're raised in a average mentality, how hard it is to just break out of the mold if your parents are the same, if your siblings are like this, and your friends maybe are just drinking beer and going to the club or
Right.
whatever, like how can you break this? I know maybe you see this in hindsight now because
Right.
you could not do it at the time, but if you could do it again, what you would change to make it like, I can meet new people, and this was before social media, so I don't know, give
Exactly.
me your
Yeah.
thoughts on that.
Well, it's really interesting because as with anything, and even you can attest to this in your own life, to cause change, and really any change whatsoever, whether negative change, to get worse or to get better, it it takes some sort of action, not action, it takes some sort of like trigger, right? It takes some sort of either extreme pain to move you into a new direction,
Yeah.
or an extreme pleasure, right? An extreme desire to move you towards that. And the advantage that people have today is the social media, is YouTube, right? You can go on and watch 1,000 videos about different, motivational speakers, and, like literally billionaires. We're part of this 10X
Yeah.
community. You can watch Grant
Mhm.
Cardone and watch his journey and what he's doing and his mindset, and learn from that. And yeah, in the 90s, we didn't have that. There was no, I couldn't sit on my phone and, do anything of that nature, and listen to these influences from across the world or across the country. I only had what was in my library at my high school and whatever that
Yeah.
librarian happened to order for books. And then that was it. And my dad, and my immediate family. Um, so without that, you're right. It's extremely difficult to get out of that mentality, because I didn't have any of those things. I didn't have those big draws of, hey, my uncles, aunts, cousins is this, real estate mogul over
Mhm.
here, and I want to go do that. I
Yeah.
didn't have that. But on the same side, I didn't have the, my father was an alcoholic and abused me or anything like that. I didn't have that extreme negatives to push
Yeah.
me, further. We were just the kind of a normal average day middle class family. We paid our
Yeah.
bills, we went to work and went to school, and that's about the extent of it.
Yeah. You said it's interesting because, like, I would, even for me and my family, I would say so higher middle class, but
Right.
no extremes of, like, I was the addict, but my parents were super clean, not drinking, not doing
Right.
anything. Like my siblings the same. So I think it's interesting how everybody's just maybe part of their family in a very unique way. It doesn't matter if you're poor, middle class, or rich.
Right.
Anything can happen according to many factors. So there's so much things that you don't know. But of course, if you expose yourself to a higher maybe mentality or a success stories, if you're younger, I think it's easier to be like a sponge and
Right.
then grow from that environment. But maybe you had on the other side, you had a bit later in life. So,
Yeah.
how long ago did you decide to actively invest in yourself, seek out mentors, buy courses, seminars, become a trained in whatever you're doing right now?
Right. Yeah. So not long ago, it was kind of, the decision was almost made for me a little bit with the, this whole COVID insanity and the pandemic and stuff, as far as pushing me into. And again, that was a thing that pushed me, because at the time I was very comfortable. I was doing very well for myself, financially, and with a job that I enjoyed. I didn't absolutely love, and I knew it wasn't going to be long term. And we can get
What
into
was the
that in a
job?
little bit.
Yeah.
So I guess we could do kind of
Yeah,
a,
we
a
can.
short little timeline.
Yeah.
So I joined the Air Force late in life. Same thing, right? My wife and I were married. I tried college, but it was too expensive for both of us to go to college. So she was further ahead, and we got her through, and just kind of worked and floated around different things. And I'm like, oh, I want to be an airline pilot. This is what I want to do. So we
Hmm.
actually uprooted, moved to New Mexico, to go to this flight school that Mesa Airlines was putting on. And this was, again, kind of failure to plan is planning to fail. After the 9/11, right, with all the insanity that was happening after that with the airline industry, certainly they were still having the massive pilot layoffs and furloughs.
Hmm.
And I'm looking at, I went through my first semester of flight school with them, And I'm looking at it, and they're still like laying off. And I'm going, man, it's gonna cost me another $50,000. And this was in like early 2000s, 2001 or so. It's going to cost me like another $50,000 to finish this program just to apply to the airlines. And
That's crazy.
like, I'm not going to get picked up because guys with 3,000 hours aren't getting hired on, right? They're not going to hire this new guy that has like 100 hours. So we quit that. And that, I'm like, oh, and I'd always thought about going into the Air Force as a young man, before I met my wife, like young high school age, like, oh, that'd be kind of cool. And I'm like, hey, let's just do it. It was a path to have the Air Force pay for my degree. I'd started to show a little bit of interest for like mechanical engineering. I'm like, oh, that'd be kind of a neat job to do. Kind of fits my personality and mindset. So we did that, went into the Air Force, enlisted in June of 2003. Absolutely loved it, man. I fit into the Air Force like a duck to water.
Really?
I loved the culture of it. I loved the community of it, the mission of it. And just had a blast. I met some amazing people that I'm proud to call friends to this day. It's those types of friendships where we may not talk to each other literally for 10 years, but the second we meet each other again, it's kind of that you come back to it. You're just immediately, feeling. Yeah. So yeah, the Air Force was very good to us.
Yeah, let's talk about this for a while, because yesterday I had a podcast with a guy from the next two. Like, we read a book called The Culture Code, and they're speaking about the code within armies, within thief groups, within great organization that are just working well. And I think they were speaking about Navy SEALs, and these people, they've been through so much stuff together.
Right.
Like, they could show vulnerability, they could create a safe space together. They had a sense of purpose, connected so powerfully. So maybe share your experience with that, because did you have any mission like on the field directly, or you were in reserve?
Yeah, not. So when I first joined the Air Force, I joined as what's called a command post controller. And we're the guys, if you think about it, we're kind of the brain cell of the base. So each base has a command post. So think about it. We're the ones with the red phone. So if like anything ever happened and they need to, the red phone rings and like, hey, go to DEFCON 4, right? All that kind of stuff. So we're kind of like the liaison between each base commander and higher headquarters. And honestly, you're just there for emergencies. So for most part, you're kind of just sitting around, and there's always two people, working the desk 24/7, Christmas, New Year's, like every day of the year. But that provided me an opportunity to really go to, finish my schooling and get working towards that. But to your question, for the culture part of it, yeah. And that's something that the military is so good at, because even though we were, I had friends from Louisiana and Texas and New York and like all over, right? And here I am coming from Washington State. Washington State at the time. Even though we had all these different backgrounds and experiences, we all came through that military funnel of basic training, right? And we had that similar, where they do very good at bringing your mindset together. Like, you still get to be Kale. You still get to be, hey, I'm from Washington. This is my background. This is my personality. But you assimilate into this overall culture of, how do I contribute to the Air Force mission? Like whatever that is, based around my skill set, whether you're a pilot or a security forces guy, or, in my case, a command post guy. So that's something that they're very good at, switching that mentality of you become part of this larger mission and you understand where you fit in that. And that just creates that culture of, hey, we're here to, you may be having a bad day, sweet, because everyone has bad days. We're still human, people still have relationship problems and health problems and all that type of stuff. But I can't speak to, the Army or any of the other services, although the Marine Corps is very good at this too, right? for getting people bought into that mission and really going down that road of culture. And it's something, once you have that stamp on you, you just don't get rid of it, just like,
no, I can imagine.
Yeah. It's really interesting.
I was thinking, how can you apply what you just said in your new business or in your new life? Like, if you know how to create a great culture and you were part of one, is there any cues that you can see right now for somebody who has a business and you're a leadership coach, so you can maybe mention, how do you help them create this sense of culture and unity inside an organization?
Right. So when you have a lack of a common experience, such as a basic training type of event, right? Or a Navy SEAL training that everyone has to go through. And most businesses can't really set it up like, hey, congratulations, new hire. We're going to send you down to this obstacle course and run you through the ringer and, run for 20 miles. And right, you just can't do that. So absent of that, you have to have a common goal. You have to have some target that everybody's working towards. And that's really what we focus on helping small businesses do, because a lot of small businesses, they start their business because like, man, I've always wanted to open my own pizza shop, right? We'll just use that as an example because maybe that's, maybe they're from an Italian family and that's just food is part of their culture in their family. And they want to extend that and use it as a form to support their family, financially. But that will only get you so far. Like the love of pizza, like great, but is that going to, is that going to cause other people to come to want to work for you and things? So it really becomes like, how do you attract people that want to be part of your culture that is beyond just, making pizzas or whatever the technical thing is that your business is doing? Do you have a growth mindset of, man, I'm going to be the number one pizza shop, whether you franchise or whatever, but the number one pizza shop in my community, or I want to raise so much money with my pizza shop because I'm, focused on fundraising for this charity in my community, all these types of things. And that's what really draws people to you and attracts them for being a part of that culture of, because people want to be part of something that's exciting. They want to be part of something that's growing, that has potential, that, is not going to just, and also challenge them a little bit. So that's kind of my nutshell is absent of that common brutal intake form, like basic training or Navy SEAL training, you really have to have something that you can offer people to really strive towards and work together towards, some big goal and make it exciting. Yeah.
And when you work with your clients, are you establishing that from the beginning when you start your program, or you wait? Well, I guess I answer myself, but how do you help them then find this bigger vision? Do you have any specific questions, any specific exercise because not everybody can just go inside and say, what do I want? They never did that before. And maybe it's a bit awkward and like long. So how do you guide them in this process?
Yeah, that's a great question, because it is a process, right? Because a lot of small businesses that we work with are very similar to us. They come from kind of a middle class mentality, because usually people that come from multi-millionaire type families aren't starting pest management companies or carpet cleaning companies, right? So it's first to, if they're not already, open them up to this world that you and I have already been exposed to, to open them up that, yeah, you don't have to settle for this, right? You don't have to just earn, to put a financial on it, you don't have to just earn $80,000 a year and think that's your cap, right? There's no lack of resources or money or talent in this world. It's just a matter of, do you want to go get it? Do you want to do the things to go after it? But to start, when we were working with someone, it's really an evaluation of them and their personality, because some people are very outgoing and they want to connect with their employees and they want to be involved and they want to encourage. And other people are just like, you're here to do a job. I'm paying you, $10 an hour to go fold those boxes or clean those floors, right? Kind of thing. And it's getting them out of that and helping them understand employees, staff members, that's not inspiring. There's nothing awesome about a boss just telling you what to do or giving you orders. They have to have some sort of larger mission or goal. And whether that's in something that the employee themselves have a pathway, like, hey, you may be starting as a dishwasher in our restaurant, but in a couple of years and doing these things, you can be the store manager because I'm opening up 12 more locations across my state. And it gives you that opportunity. And then people are like, oh, wow, that's, something I never thought of. I can do that. And you help them along that path. So that's really kind of, I guess, to go back to your question directly, kind of doing an analysis of them, of their mentality to start with. Do they have a growth mindset, for lack of a better term, or are they kind of just stuck of, I just don't want to go broke, right? A scarcity type of mindset. And then really helping them develop, their business identity, which includes, their core values. What does their business stand for? Because even a pizza shop has to stand for something, right? You can't just be like, yeah, I'm just here to make pizzas, because that will never last. And you'll never get fulfillment from it. You'll never be excited to get up and go to work. You'll never try to grow, right? You have to stand for something.
And in this case, do you believe in like true competition? If you find your real purpose or your big why, then is the competition just you do your business, you do you, and then you will shine because you will be very unique? Or there's a part of that and part also be aware of your competition and see what they're doing so you can maybe do even better or have better prices? Or what is your opinion on that?
Yeah, that's really interesting because you can't ignore your competition,
No.
right? You would be a fool if you
Yeah.
in the business capitalistic society to ignore your competition, right? Ford doesn't ignore what GM is doing. That doesn't ignore what Toyota is doing, right? But they still focus on Ford and what Ford is all about. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
They still 100%. It's because you can't build a business on we're just not, say I'm Kale Houser Industries. Like I can't build a business on just not being Anthony Industries and how we're just not you. You have to build a business on, no, this is me. This is Kale Houser Industries, and this is what I'm building on. I'm still aware of what you're doing as my competition because, yeah, maybe you're making innovations in the field that I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. That really worked. Or you come up with some awesome marketing plan and you can model that and figure that out. But as far as, I guess, you never want to focus on your competition in the sense of making that your business identity. And that
Yeah.
may be what actually it's interesting that you brought that up because I think a lot of businesses start that way. They're like, man, I can do this better. My company can do this product, deliver this service better than that guy over there. And maybe that's what causes you to start it. Like, hey, everybody, we're new in this community. We're so much more awesome because we're not them. But eventually, and that may be the pull that gets you in the door, that gets the community to buy into your business. But eventually you have to move away from just not being them into like, hey, people come to you because you're the best ice cream shop in town now, not just because you offer more flavors than the other guy had across the street.
Yeah. Makes sense,
Yeah,
man. Thank you so much for that.
sure.
Let's go back. So when you got laid off at your work, so 2020 it was exactly, or 2021?
Yeah, so we didn't make it that far in the story, but so I separated from the Air Force after 16 years. I did 1 year in the Air National Guard in Arizona, but that was right at the beginning of this COVID insanity that nobody saw coming, right? So it was kind of interesting. When I transferred, I incurred a commitment in part of the transferring process, which the Air Force it does all the time. Anytime you move, you incur like a year or two commitment to kind of cover the costs of the move. The Air Force gets back the money they invest in you. So I go to this guard unit and I'm on orders because guard is very different. It's not active duty. You're kind of on orders, on and off orders as you work for them because it can be part-time, but it could also be full-time. But I get all in processed with them. And I go through my initial kind of training that I have to do, even though I was doing the exact same job with this guard unit that I was active duty with the Air Force. And I'll never forget it. I finish my training, get all signed off, like, all right, you're good to go do your job. The commander crosses the T's and dots the I's. You're all official. And so I have a day off and I'm getting ready to start my shift coming up this next week because I was going to be on orders for like the next month before I went to go do my other job. And my supervisor calls me and says, hey, and it was the weekend. He says, on Monday, and this was like in May of 2020, Monday, the Department of Defense is instituting a travel ban, right? In response to this whole COVID insanity. They're going to stop moving people around. And, if you're up to move stations, they're going to hold you in place. He says, do you want to stay on orders or not, or come off? I'm like, man, I'm not, because with the guard, if you're on orders, they've got you, right? You can't just be like, if they put a travel ban, that's considered to them travel, right? Coming off of orders. And like, I'm not getting stuck here for a year. Like they're going to just keep me on orders, right? Like, no, I'm out.
Yeah.
Forget this. And so I worked for them after training for 1 day, came off orders on that Monday. The DOD did their big travel ban, like put a complete halt on every military member of the United States military machine. And so I was, as part of getting out of active duty, I joined a government contracting company, again, doing my same job, but just as a contractor where I deploy 3 months on, 3 months off, different countries. so I went and, I basically went back to that and, had some time off. Family and I took a little mini vacation. We were supposed to go see the Grand Canyon, but literally the day before we were going to go see it, the Grand Canyon shut down as part of this thing. Like, I didn't know you could shut down a big hole in the earth. It was kind of
That's
crazy,
funny,
but
man.
yeah. So fast forwarding a little bit, went on a couple deployments, and you could see the writing on the wall with this vaccine stuff was starting to develop in different countries, because a lot of the countries I was deploying to, kind of third world countries that, were very aware and ultra cautious about, pandemics and things like that, to decimate, because they just don't have the medical machine to handle that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But it came down not by virtue of my company requiring it themselves that I was working for at the time. And same thing, that the DoD, just like every other government agency, started mandating it, the vaccine. But it came down as a virtue of every country that we were required to go into, that country was requiring vaccination and stuff. And it was really a turning point of, okay, how I had been a part of the government machine. I had seen kind of the inner workings of how the military works and the mindset and all this kind of stuff. And I started just kind of stepping back and looking what was going on, because I am not my body is so chock full of vaccines, through my military service, that I absolutely believe in vaccines. But there was something about this one that just didn't sit right with me. So my wife and I, we made the choice, like, nope, we're not going to do this, at least for now, until this is proven to not, cause people to just drop dead on site and all this kind of stuff. It just wasn't a risk I was willing to take. And because of that, my company essentially said, okay, well, we're not going to deploy you, right? Which they couldn't, because, country XYZ, it was required to just get into that country once you landed at the airport, no different than a passport. And I'm like, okay. And that was really the stepping back point of, okay, well, what are we going to do? Because once I'm not deploying, because by nature of my job, I don't make any money when I'm not deployed. I make all my money, during that short time period. And then you're essentially off when you're off. So I haven't done that it's been over a year now since I've done that last deployment. And my wife, with my military background and all the hard lessons that I'd learned in there, I'm like, man, I'd always wanted to. I just, again, didn't have anything to push me towards it. I'm like, I would love someday to start a leadership consulting, coaching, like something that I can contribute back to the business community from all the very hard lessons that I learned in the military and different arenas surrounding that I think I could be really beneficial to people and help them guide through some of those landmines that I had experienced from a leadership and relating to teams, hiring, all those types of things. So I don't remember exactly what your original question was,
Doesn't
but
matter.
that's kind of how I got to
good,
where
man.
I was
There's
for my entrepreneurial.
flowy conversation. There's no specific way to go. And so you spoke about having hard lessons in military. Can you share with us maybe one or two big ones? Because I know people relate. So, like, people who are now in society are comfortable, to some extent, or people who don't have much thing, they maybe have excuses of why they cannot do more. And I would like them to hear, how did you get this idea from military that, okay, I've been through that, and because of that, I can coach people leadership. Because it's a very interesting. It makes sense. Yeah, it's logical. But maybe give us specific stories, one or two that you really like, and we're gonna go here.
Yeah. So the first 10 years of my Air Force experience was awesome. Absolutely loved it. I'm like, I am all in. I am going to ride this pony to the very end. Right. And that's, at the time, that was the goal. Like the classic, I'm going to work 20 years, get my pension, and then go off and do something else. Right. There was no reason not to. And I remember it was at about the 10-year mark of after 10 years of service. And I'm like, this isn't quite as awesome as it was, and then just every year, it was just a little bit worse. And it wasn't, certainly things were happening in my life. We had children at that point, and, you've got young kids, and that always changes things. But it was just the and also as I was gaining in rank. So in that time, I had got my commission. I'd become an officer. So it's a little bit different, roles and responsibilities in the military. And as I'm gaining rank in the officer corps, my eyes are just getting open more and more to the larger Air Force culture and what kind of is the behind the scenes working and how things get done. And one of the common misconceptions that I always tell people is when you think of military leaders and military commanders, because we assume like, oh, the military makes some fun, like that's what they do. They make phenomenal leaders. They output all these things, based on those experience. And that is absolutely partially true. There are examples of that. We can all think of, amazing military leaders in history, right? George Washington and Powell and, all the MacArthur, all these different classic examples of military, like legit military leadership that people would literally die for as part of their cause. But the reality is those guys are such the exception. And the norm is the military makes phenomenal commanders. They make men and women that can look at a situation, analyze it very logically and go, yep, we're going to go do this because of this. And you know what? Young soldier, young Navy seaman, young airman, young Marine, you're going to do it because I told you to. You're going to do it because I have the law on my side in the form of, our universal code of military justice that says, if you don't do what I say, guess what? I get to send you to jail. I get to dock your pay. I get to, remove rank from your shoulder. So the military makes great commanders. But once you take that authority away from them, on average, what I witnessed was they were not leaders, right? Because nobody would willingly follow them. Once you took away those sticks that they could employ to inspire followership, right? And that was a lot of what was opened up to me. And I remember so specifically going, man, if I'm eventually, and this is when I was a younger officer, so you didn't really have authority over people at that point. You were still, learning your job and all that stuff. I said, man, as I get to that position to where I can become a little like a flight commander is what we call them in the Air Force, to where I actually have that legit positional authority. Like I'm going to try doing it this way. I'm going to try doing it instead of just telling people, hey, Sergeant so-and-so, you're going to go do this because I said so. And I'm the boss. I'm going to go like, hey, this is why we're doing this. This is our mission. This is why it's important. And just kind of change up my tact of how I led people. And I found it actually worked. And I'll never forget one of the key turning points was our squadron commander at the time. This was maybe a year or so before I decided to get out, or where the Air Force gave me the opportunity to separate from active duty and go a different direction. Actually, it was probably 2 or 3 years before. Our boss at the time, he had made it very clear. He's like, I don't believe in this platform that you guys are flying. I don't like it, but I'm here just because it gives me my chance to be a squadron commander. So then he could go on, get that check mark to be a squadron commander. So he can go on to bigger and better things, right? It's kind of the path. I'm like, wow, that's kind of a stupid thing to say to your entire squadron that, like,
of course.
But he made it no secret. It's not that he every day went around like, you suck, nothing like that. But he made it no secret that like, nope, this isn't a real plane and all this stuff, because we flew the unmanned stuff. And he came from the manned aircraft world. But I'll never forget, it was Super Bowl Sunday, and same thing, we flew 24/7, all day, every day, shift work. And he's like, hey, Super Bowl Sunday, I'm going to bring in on Sunday, I'll get some pizzas. We had our little break room that we could go to, but our operational center was separate, right? Because it was in a secure area and stuff. And then our break room was outside at a different part of the building. But again, people aren't just hanging out, right? Especially on a Sunday afternoon, we're all working. And I'll never forget, I'd gone out to like use the restroom or something. I'm walking back by our break room. And as I look over, the commander's sitting there literally by himself, just on his phone. There's all these pizzas and nobody came out to hang out. Like a couple guys came, like especially the younger guys came out like, oh, free pizza, right? They grabbed their slice of pizza and then went right back to work. And I remember sitting there going like,
that's
he essentially invited everyone to this free meal. And who doesn't love a free meal? But nobody was there. Nobody wanted to just be like, hey, Commander so-and-so, Colonel so-and-so, let's hang out, because that's just wasn't the culture that he had built. And then on the flip side, I'm like, man, how do I not have that happen to me if I do a similar thing? And I just started implementing and testing these different things. And one of honestly the proudest moments of my military career was my little flight that I had, because at that point I was in charge of, I want to say like maybe 20-ish people, pilots and sensors, different air crew. And I said, hey, everybody, we're going to have a barbecue at my house. Free food, bring your own beer if you want to bring beer and all that kind of stuff. But, bring the family. We're going to have water balloons and all this kind of stuff. And we're just going to hang out for a couple hours, no agenda, just not be at work. Cause it was we worked in groups. So we all had the day off. And every single person from my flight showed up, except for 2 that already had previous commitments to go out of town. Like they were on vacation,
Wonderful.
right? And I'm sitting there going, like, what was the
That's
difference?
cool.
What caused people to take time on their day off to come with their family to hang out with me and my family and just have a good time together, versus our commander couldn't get people that were already at work to go to the break room to hang out with him and have free pizza stuff. And so that was a big turning point when I, and again, talking with my wife and I are like, could we do this? Could we replicate this? Could we teach people that are in similar positions to do that? Are there actions that are replicatable to have people show up to your barbecue on a Sunday, right? Versus not show up for free pizza. So that's kind of that's the big sticking out story of what was kind of the final straw or a big stick of getting that going. Yeah.
And to deserve this presence of everybody, which kind of step did you have to take for them to accept over, like, how many months did you work on them, like in a not manipulative way, but in an authentic way? Like, I want to be with you. I want to be closer to you.
Right.
So
yeah. It took a little process. It wasn't just, hey, everybody, I'm, Captain so-and-so. I just took over command of this flight and we're having this barbecue. It wasn't that. Absolutely. Because I knew that wouldn't work. People, even though I had that positional authority and they had to listen to me, they didn't have to show up to my house. But it went through several, I don't know if trial and errors is the right word, but just several iterations of some mornings. Like if we were working a mid shift, we'd get off at, 7 a.m. type of thing. My wife would come out and we'd make pancakes or waffles for everybody. And it would just be after shift. And it was the same thing at first. Yeah, only a couple people, hung around to get the free food, the waffles and things. Cause right, you just got off of a 10, 12-hour shift. You're tired and you want to just go home and crash.
Yeah.
But as we kept kind of doing that and doing different things, like maybe we'd have as we moved through the shifts, right? Because we worked day shift and then swing shift and then a mid shift, we would just try different things. And it got to the point after, I would say probably a couple months, maybe 6 months or so, everyone showed up and stayed behind for the waffles that my wife would come and make for us and help us all make. And it just became this kind of cool thing that we did. And what was great about it is the other flight commanders, because there were 3 of us that ran our own little flights, they started like, oh, like maybe I should institute that. And they started kind of doing that with their own guys, because I think the word kind of got out of, oh, wait a minute, you guys are getting waffles and, hanging out after your shift. Like, so there, of course everyone talks and we all know each other, but yeah, it was pretty interesting, but it was a process. It wasn't just, overnight.
Gotcha. Yeah. So with your clients who are business owners, do you teach them how to apply that in their business with their employees, or is it something that is maybe, I don't know, is it better to be used in companies, at home? Any maybe connection between personal life and professional life that you can share here?
Right. As with anything, right, it depends, because a lot depends on the size. If you already run a company that's 100 employees, you can't necessarily do that, because you just can't make those types of interpersonal connections, especially when you start adding in spouses and kids and stuff. Although I did have one of the commanders I had he was so sharp. I remember Liz ran into him in the grocery store and he's like, hey, Liz, nice to see you. And they had met like one time before in passing. So he was just that good at that. So if you can get to that level to where you remember people's names, especially spouses of people that work for you, man, good on you. You're so far ahead of the game. But most of us are not at that level to where we can remember, let alone recognize names and faces, but who they're attached to and all that kind of stuff. But if you're part of a smaller community, a smaller business, our whole kind of progression is, yep, you start with, you need to remember everyone's name, right? That's kind of 101, right? We can use that as a stick of, if you don't know Johnny, who's been working for you for the last 2 years or 6 months or 2 weeks, and you can't remember his name, yeah, we got to work on that. But the progression, the ultimate progression that we want to get you to after this 90 days of going through our program is, yeah, you have, your equivalent of your barbecue at your house, whatever that looks like and is appropriate for your business, your environment. Maybe it's a beach day down at the beach, or, something, a picnic, that everyone shows up, that's available to show up, right? That they actually want to be there. They actually want to be a part of your world because you've created this community, you've created these connections in your business, that people want to come to your barbecue. And that's what we did, that we were very purposeful about that. Yeah. And it wasn't just about, they wanted to come hang out with Kale, right? It was never about like, I wanted to gain all these friends, because at the end of the day, I was still their boss, right? I was still the commander of my flight. It became, they wanted to come to this barbecue because I had purposely created this culture within our little, 25 person community. And we had expanded it out to, because as those like breakfasts and things that I was mentioning earlier, a couple like girlfriends and boyfriends and spouses like showed up to him. Like, why are you here at 7 a.m? You drove all the way out to our workplace, and it was just to hang out and have breakfast with us. And it was like, that's wow, cool. It was one of those moments where you kind of, you catch yourself and you look back, and you're like, is this happening right now? Like, is this actually working? And and I'll never forget, because you have those butterflies when we had our barbecue. You have those butterflies, like, is anyone going to show up? This is going to be horrible if like only 2 people show up. But like, wow, everyone's here, and we had a blast. And even some people stayed until like 10 o'clock at night. We had a little fire pit out, and we're just, hanging out around the campfire, just BSing about whatever topic came up, life and all this stuff. It was pretty cool.
That's cool, man, to be able to attract that to yourself. And it's like you had a formula, you a bit of trials and error, but you found a formula to make it happen. Yeah. And it was not so pushy, and just overall gradually and organically people became more attracted to your energy and to this culture that you created. I think it's fantastic. It's very unique. Yeah. Is that why also you prefer to work with small businesses compared to the bigger organization? Because I would say, like, if you work with smaller groups, you can create that what you love better than if it would be 200 people in the company?
Yes. Yeah, because most small businesses, if you think about just by nature and the mechanics of how they work, they're much more relational based. Yeah. And I actually had an interview with a gentleman that runs an accounting firm that he's now at 50 employees, which is, it's a good sized business. But he talked about this a lot of, when he was at 5 employees, they all knew each other. They knew, who won their kid's soccer game last night, and they knew whose birthdays were coming, all those types of things, because it was very relational focused by nature of being a small team. But he said, as he was growing to 20 employees and 30 and now 50, he's like, it's just impossible for him as the business owner and business leader to know, like, oh yeah, employee number 42's daughter just had her wisdom teeth removed, like that kind of stuff. And that's something that right now we really enjoy that aspect of it, because it is very relational focused, and it's such an easier connection to make, versus going into, say you've got 100 employees, which means you now have several layers of, management and supervision, maybe a couple different department heads, and it's a different dynamic. You can't necessarily have that, although that was the model I had in the military, because we had several layers and different departments and different flights. We're finding, and also too, because we're fairly new, we're still in a little bit of development, because not everything directly translates from the military to, an average everyday small business. So we're in a little bit of, tweaking development. Does this same thing work over here as it does here? So we didn't want to jump into the $100 million, 200 employee type level yet, until we really get our processes down and proven. Is kind of the honest opinion of or answer to that. Yeah,
of course. I'm curious now. So when you got laid off and you thought, okay, I want to do a leadership now.
Right.
But you didn't have any clients, any leads. How do you get started from nothing? I think that's a very interesting fact for any people who want to become entrepreneur, because that will be maybe most of my audience will have this desire to move from employee to entrepreneur, and they're maybe afraid how I'm going to find people that will like what I'm doing, how I'm going to get known, because I know you already have a podcast which with over 100 episodes. So that's a good thing to
Right. Yeah.
make yourself known.
Yeah.
But what else?
Yeah. That's if I had the magic key for that, we'd all, I'd be a multi-billionaire, right? If I had that. But the reality is it's difficult, don't enter this journey lightly. Don't think, and it's not that there aren't exceptions to that rule. There are people that, they hit that magic ticket and they make the right connections and their business just explodes. That has not been the case for us. It was a difficult decision, and it was drawn out of, my previous deployment gig had drawn down, and fortunately we had an investment that had worked out that we cashed out, and like, okay, we're going to live on this money. It gives us, basically a year of income, of savings that we can live on without me having to go get a job and try to do this. So we were very blessed in that sense, because a lot of people don't have that. They're trying to do this side hustle and get this business built while doing their 9-to-5 job. So on that sense, we're very blessed. But going into it with the understanding of, first of all, just like Grant Cardone has, told us, and you don't think about it and believe it at first, but once you get in it, everything you do is going to be 10 times harder. Is, whether it be starting a podcast. I'm like, oh yeah, I can start a podcast, right? And you've probably had this same thing of, it's so easy. I just get in, I talk about a couple things,
Man,
and
the
you
anxiety
post
at the
it,
beginning,
right?
the first episode, I was like,
yeah, right.
and it's not even live. I'm recording on my computer. Like there's nobody seeing it. I can edit it. Like
we could chop anything out we want. And it was the same thing. I'm like, man, I sound so stupid and nobody's going to want to listen to this. You have all those doubts. But it ultimately comes back to, what is your why? Are you going to actually commit to doing it? And that's what it was, especially with the podcast early on. I'm like, you know what? I know I'm going to suck. And honestly, I kind of want to remove the first 20 episodes of my podcast and not post them on YouTube and stuff, because I know I suck. I remember watching the video for my first episode, and I was using a different microphone, and I kept rubbing my hands, but it was the microphone was picking it up. So you just kept hearing this. Right? I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so horrible. Cringy. But anyway, you go through these kind of just, growing pains and all those types of things. So my first advice is you have to commit. Really, that's what it comes down to. You can't do this half-hearted. You have to commit. You have to believe that based on your market research, based on, the product or service that you're developing and you're putting out to the marketplace, that it is viable, right? You don't want to, open a butcher shop in a vegan village. You have to have those basics in place of, there is a need for this product or service, but then it's committing. But to go back to how do you get known? Because same thing, I think there's 2 million podcasts out there right now. It's not like you're going to start a podcast and all of a sudden you're, competing with Joe Rogan out there, right? Yeah. And you just have to be purposeful about it, be diligent. You cannot ignore social media. Honestly, before I started this, I didn't even have an Instagram account. It was just kind of like, I had a Facebook account because I, would keep up with friends and family and do an older person's interpretation of Facebook. Didn't have TikTok, nothing like that. But then just getting in that, like, man, I need to learn this stuff because it is vitally important. That's how our community in today's day and age, across just about every country that allows it, that's how we communicate and form those connections. So really just getting your social media game, just to the next level. But outside of that, it's promo, getting your name out there, how to get out of obscurity. I will be, we hired a marketing agency at one point. They're fantastic. They helped us with, kind of our branding and things of that nature. And that was certainly an investment. But then after, working with them for a couple months, they weren't getting any results. And I'm like, this isn't working. Like how, again, going back to, we have savings, we're no job income coming in for us to sustain once we get back this. I'm like, I can't spend another 8 months while you figure out, how to market this type of thing. So, we just recently separated from them, and now we're kind of stepping back and coming up with a new game plan of attack of how do we get our name out there. So we're looking at, local events. My wife is a networking machine for locally. She goes to like probably
Cool.
3 or 4 a week in our
Mm-hmm.
surrounding county and community and that's starting to, same thing though, when she started, crickets, like there was nothing, nobody was that interested and she just hadn't made connections. But in-face networking events again are very relational based and people have to kind of trust you. And she's just now, after probably 3 or 4 months of doing this consistently, starting to get referrals and people like, wow, that's really cool what you do for your business. Like I actually, this person's like an HR person. They help businesses with their human resources and paperwork. Like, but they're struggling really with this. I have to connect you with this business owner because they're having issues with their team and hiring and all those types of things. So it's a gradual snowball that starts to really kick off. And we've got some things coming up that we're really investing in and both time, energy, and resources to get a ball rolling of really getting our name out there and snowballing. So
Beautiful.
Short
man.
answer,
Beautiful.
it takes time. Don't be shy about telling people about your business, right? Get your core values down, get your business identity down, like what you stand for, why you're doing what you do, who you serve. That's your number one, right? Because if you serve everybody, you really serve nobody, is what it comes down to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Also, I was thinking, so you were speaking about this agency right now, just a couple of seconds ago.
Yeah.
What is your opinion about people getting paid on results versus on time?
Right. So performance-based versus just kind of a retainer, right?
Hourly wage. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's funny that you asked that question, because when we first contacted this agency, and this was back in February, she wanted just pure time. Like, hey, you're going to pay us so much money per month, and then plus whatever we spent in advertising, right? Whether it be Facebook ads or anything. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. You are essentially not incentivized at all to do a good job for us. Like you're going to make let's just call it $5,000 a month, different agencies cost, you can spend 50 grand a month, with different agencies or 2, whatever. Let's just call it 5. Like you're still going to make your $5,000 a month no matter what. And I have no say on that, and I could be, and I'm spending, let's just say $2,000 a month in advertising. So I'm spending $7,000 a month. And whether I get 1 lead out of that or 3,000 leads out of that, like especially as a smaller business, we're a small business. It's my wife and I at this point. Like that's insane. Like there's no way, unless you're going to say, all right, well, in 3 months, if we don't give you, say 1,000 leads, we'll give you all your money back. That's certainly an option, right? I would jump in that. But I came back and told her, I'm like, no, like I trust you, but I don't trust you that much. Right? We have no history together. You don't have the results that you can put in front of me and say, yeah, for clients that are just like you, this is what I've done. And these are the results they had. This is why I'm charging this and this. But then, to her credit, and really this is faith in her business and her ability, she came back and said, okay, well, we'll do performance-based, no monthly fee. And it's just, it's like 10% or whatever that percentage is of new clients I bring to you. And I think that's really the model. Yeah. It kind of sucks but I even told her, I'm like, I would happily pay you $100,000 a month as part of your cut, right? Because you're now bringing me $1 million a month worth of business. And I think, especially as younger businesses, stay away from the retainer monthly fee type and focus on performance based, because same thing, had we have not done that initially, so February to, let's just call it the beginning of July into June, so that's what, almost 5 months, we'd have, at $5,000 a month, we'd have dropped like 30 grand on this agency and got nothing. Right? Nothing from it. And I'm going, yeah, that's insane. So that's one of the, like, oh, good job, Kale, pat yourself on the back. So yeah. And that's my number one. I'm not a believer in especially for something that's so subjective, such as advertising and getting leads like that. Like I would stay away from that until you can find somebody that's proven,
You know what is I like also, I think if you're a new business and you're very hungry, you can actually advertise yourself on the performance base and be more attractive.
Yes.
For example, I did this with somebody in 10X. Say, I'm going to help you sell your program. I really believe in your product. I'm going to help you. don't pay me for my time. Pay me for just the sales I bring to the company. I don't want any
Yeah.
just, oh, I made a list today of 30 people. I don't care about that. Let me
Right.
prove that I can help you, and then later down the road. But now just give me a percentage and I
Yeah.
will give my everything. And if you know you're going to be paid on performance, then this whole 10x principle is much more easier to apply, because you know that the more you will do in this smarter way, more efficient way,
Right.
will bring the results eventually, maybe not overnight, of course, but
Right.
eventually. And you will be able to endure the and have the sweat equity,
Yeah. Yeah.
to make everything happen. So I'm pumped by this idea of just, guys and girls, just go and offer to prove yourself first
Right.
to this big mentor, this big company that you would love to work for. Don't just come and say, well, my fee is $30 an hour and I'm gonna maybe deliver this in 2 months.
Right. Right.
I don't think
And
it's
that's
gonna work as
really
much.
because there's two aspects about that. One is the first one, that's the middle class mentality. The people that, I work for $50,000 a year, and no matter what I do, I'm going to make $50,000 a year this year, right? Whether I'm the garbage employee or a good one, and maybe through the years you'll get promotions and now I'm at 55 or 60, whatever that is. So it's very limiting because it's a self-imposed ceiling that people eventually, you hit them over the stick enough times, they start realizing that, okay, I can't go further than this. And because there's no incentive to produce more, to learn more, anything. And it's why salesmen in general are paid on commission, right? That's what it is. And the best salesmen are paid on 100% commission. They have no base salary or anything because they know. And the other side of that sword is, from the employee standpoint and from somebody working under those conditions, they're like, so it's totally up to me if I earn $10,000 this month or $100,000 this month. Like, I can literally just go crazy and all out, and I can clear like $1 million this year. You're telling me, business owner, you'll pay me that? I'm like, well, yeah, if you're bringing me $1 million a month, I will gladly pay you $100,000,
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And I think it's such a fascinating, because you're right. The incentive of it on either of those models is drastically different, especially long-term.
Yeah. And do you think it requires a certain personality type to be able to do that? Or you think anybody can learn to become good at sales and go out there and cold call, warm call, power base, everything in this spectrum? Uh, I don't really believe, like, if you're introvert or extrovert, it makes a big difference. I think you
Right.
can, because I would say personally, yes, I have a work in public. I'm a teacher and a coach. I can
Right.
perform. I can be there, but being in public, I can get drained after a couple hours in social settings. So this would be like introvert side.
Right.
But I don't want this as an excuse to say, okay, but I'm not going to be a great salesman for my own business and for other people's products that I believe in, just because, oh, I'm an introvert. I prefer to read books on Saturday night.
Right. Right. To answer your question, yes and yes. Anyone can learn, because sales is a process. Sales is a step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, right? Anyone can learn that, introverted, extroverted. And actually, I would argue it's harder for extroverted people because they are so much more inspired by, like, hey, let's just chat and talk and, talk about the birds and like, oh,
Yeah.
I went on this trip, right? It's harder for them versus, because sales is a process. No matter what your product or service is, it's like, does that client or potential prospect have a need? Does your product or service meet that need? How does it meet it? What are their objections to it? And how do you overcome and meet those objections that they're not objections? Then ultimately, with price, like, do you provide enough value that it's worth them giving you their resources in the form of money to do so, right? It's a process that anyone can learn. But on the flip side, in our culture, in the North American, capitalistic culture, we have this stigma about sales, right? And about getting yourself out there and being that person, that those are the things that stop people. And when you don't have a why, like, yeah, I would never have gone after that as a young man, as my first job. But I did later in life. I was a car salesman, and it terrified me. I'm like, I don't want to be a car salesman, right? But then I started looking at it, and like, they taught me some extremely valuable lessons as far as just talking to people, because I was definitely not an introvert by nature, but I'm an observer by nature, which
Yeah.
kind of makes me an introvert, because like going to the airport is one of my favorite things to do, just to see people and, you know, all that kind of stuff. But they taught me some extremely valuable lessons just about, you know, getting yourself out there and kind of closing off those doubts and not being so invested in things that when people say, no, I don't want to buy that car, it's not like, Kale, you suck, you know, I'm not going to buy a car from you. It's like, no, they're just not buying that car, right? You take yourself out of that equation a little bit. And I think that's really what you're alluding to by your comments of people put themselves in it so much that they think a rejection is a rejection of like me and invalidating my existence, right? And that's not the case at all. Yeah, whatsoever. If somebody doesn't want our coaching program, it's because, one, I failed to show them the value of it, but it's not a rejection of Kale Houser. It's a rejection of them not seeing the value of how I can help them.
Yeah, makes sense, man.
Yeah.
Kale, we're coming to the end. My last question for you is, if we go in the future, 2027, 5 years from now, and people will go back in time to the original episodes of your brother's podcast on YouTube, what you would love them to remember about this show and about yourself, about your message on planet Earth, something inspiring, impactful, and it's just going to represent who you are, and people can leave this call and, man, whoa, he shook my world. That was good.
Yeah,
Anything
that's awesome.
coming up?
Yes. So first of all, I'm going to put a reminder in my calendar 5 years from now to watch this episode again myself, because I think it's going to be a fantastic time capsule to see.
Of course.
But as a major takeaway, I hope people have kind of gotten this sense of sticking to your convictions, right? Like you are who you are because you are who you are. You're special. There's something about you that makes you unique. It makes you talented. It makes you just special in your environment, whatever that is, whether it be business, in your family, in your community. And there comes a point where those things that make you, your character, your personality, what you believe in, will be challenged. And you need to decide, are you going to stick to those convictions that you've developed, that you've decided, like, this is what makes Kale Kale. This is what makes Anthony Anthony. These are the things I stand for. These are my whys in my life of why I do the things I do. And as you come across those obstacles and people that legitimately, you know, hate you, you know, the haters out there, and they're trying to stop you, which is, you know, very prevalent in our culture right now. Are you going to fold to that, or are you going to stand and go, no, this is who I am. This is my cause. And this is why I do the things I do. So having those things ahead of time as part of, especially if you're, you know, a young entrepreneur, you're developing your business, having those things set in stone, you know, in the form of your core values and your mission statement, your vision statement, how you treat and interact with your community, that is what is going to save you from being like, oh no, like I'm too scared, I'm just going to fold and quit and go move away and tuck my tail, right? And I think really, I'm hoping that people have understood standing for your convictions, you know, and being able to pivot when needed, but ultimately, like, this is the drawing line, right? The line in the sand that I will not cross for anything. So yeah, that's my takeaway.
Thank you so much for this beautiful answer. Beautiful. How can we connect with you online? How do we say thank you for this episode? How do we connect with your coaching, with your podcast? I know you have many things that you're offering now. So yeah, it's time for your marketing now. Promote yourself.
Sure. Yeah, fantastic. So Kale Houser on pretty much all the social media, you know, Twitter and TikTok and LinkedIn and all that kind of stuff. Absolutely send me a connect on LinkedIn. That would be fantastic. I host a podcast, the Kale Houser Leadership Secrets podcast. It's on all the platforms. I'm just now getting my YouTube caught up. So there are some of my episodes on there, but I'm getting, like you said, we just passed this like a week ago, the 100th episode. So I do one every day, Monday through Friday. Make sure you subscribe to that, provide feedback, what you want to hear. And you'll see Anthony's episode on there as well. Make sure you check that one out. It was pretty cool. I really enjoyed doing that one. And then kalehouser.com. Make sure you check me out. That has a list of all the stuff we've got going on, whether it's our workshops or if you want to reach out and get joined into our community, subscribe on there, get on our list. And then I have absolutely, if there's something I can help you immediately in your business, book a call. I've got my calendar on there. We can hop on a call and I can absolutely help you out with that. So kalehouser.com. Yeah.
Sounds fantastic. Cool. So for me, guys, this is Anthony Rivest for Your Brother's Podcast. You can follow me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, And Your Brother's Podcast will be also, we'll have an Instagram and YouTube page and Facebook. So either me personally or the podcast itself, both are a good version. You can subscribe to both. Thank you so much for your time. And if you feel inspired to help me in this mission, I'm very open to suggestion of new guests. And also, if you want to support me financially, there will be a Patreon link in the description. So feel free to be generous and contribute to this beautiful mission, because I love this project so much. I have amazing guests and I wanted to continue and 10x these results. So I will talk to you soon, and thank you so much. See you guys.